Welcome to my first episode of the review and analysis of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. Firestorm has long since been my favorite superhero. I first learned about him back when I watched Justice League Unlimited, where he briefly appeared a few times, and then I found out he was in Super Friends, which aired back in the late 70s to about the mid 80s. I quickly began accumulating the comics as they were pretty cheap at the time, and I am always keeping an eye out for more at comic conventions or comic stores. But they're becoming increasingly rare to pick up, so I don't think it had the largest print run initially. That might be why I can't find as many copies as I'd like. The first issue debuted in March 1978 and was created by Gary Conway and Al Milgrom. Now, there are some stories as to how this character was created. However, I like to believe that the true creation leads back to Fantastic Four number 20 with the introduction of Molecule Man over in the Marvel Universe, which in 1963 had eerily similar powers. And the comic creators from Marvel and DC at the time were ripping each other off all the time, so it hardly matters, I suppose. Anyway, the first publication was canceled after 5 issues, with the 6th issue being included in something called the Canceled Comic Cavalcade, which is a bit out of my price range to collect, but I still try to get my hands on as many of this first run and the second print run as I can. After the cancellation of the first volume of Firestorm, putting the smaller stories into the backs of other comics persisted for this character, and many backup stories were printed in Flash around 1981, and alternate stories and appearances in other DC comics like DC Presents, Justice League of America, and some crossover stories like Crisis of Infinite Earths and Legends 1 through 6. The focus of our discussion today will be Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, Volume 1, Issue 1, March 1978. This issue includes the first appearances for many featured and supporting characters, including Ronnie Raymond and Martin Stein, the main protagonists, Cliff Carmichael and Doreen Day, as well as some antagonists like Danton Black and Eddie Earhart, who we will also get to know much better as the series progresses. Ronald Roy Raymond is our main hero, alliteration at its finest. He is a high school student, which appealed to me at the time I discovered him, and also played sports, which I was very much a part of in middle and high school as well. So I felt some sort of connection to this character, being both a sport jock and a comic reading, trading card collecting nerd that I am, and I haven't ever picked up on that from another character before. Starting with the cover, which you've been staring at here for a while, you can see Firestorm already in his superhero nuclear form, charging out at the reader aggressively, the flaming Firestorm text and nuclear symbols already hinting to the reader about the character's origins. Opening the cover, we are immediately informed the location of the character's adventures, New York, which is a stark contrast from the fictional cities of his DC counterparts. Readers may have been used to stories in Metropolis, Gotham, or Central City, but Firestorm, being in a real-world location, was initially a bit jarring to me, but eventually having him in real locations grew on me, making the more familiar settings and iconography that the artists drew into the backgrounds, allowing me to find an even deeper connection to the character and their adventures. We start out immediately into a crime in progress, the reader being delivered a dialogue explaining the newfound powers of this nuclear man, his ability to alter atoms, changing things around him, flying directly into and through a helicopter, and the psychic link between Ronnie and Dr. Martin Stein, who often gets overlooked on people's top 20 lists of smartest DC characters. So, they fly to New Jersey, into a nuclear facility where a gang is trying to blow the place up with some dynamite, and the goons decide to try and shoot him with their guns. But if Firestorm can fly directly through 10 feet of steel, their bullets will be no match for him, except we have a flashback. Ronnie remembers his first day at his new school, where he recently got transferred. Cliff Carmichael, sporting some gnarly sideburns, starts picking on Ronnie in front of token cute girl Doreen Day for getting transferred because Ronnie is kinda dumb. While Cliff is the resident Einstein at the school, which honestly has probably never happened in the existence of ever. The smart nerd bullying the dumb jock, what a world. Anyway, the school day continues, and the writers acknowledge that the reader is probably curious to get back to the superhero action, but exposition awaits, so be patient. Ronnie goes on to get yelled at by a teacher, spill his lunch on the cute girl, laments about not being able to make friends. We learn a little bit about his father and his connection to the school principal, and then we jump cut over to Martin Stein's side of the story. Martin Stein has won a Nobel Prize, which I have been unable to verify if any other super genius level characters in the DC universe have ever been awarded, but leave some notes in the comments if you know of any. Martin is working on a nuclear power plant, smoking his pipe, and concerned about an upcoming meeting with the governor to make sure the plant is up and running. But some protesters are outside, and in barges Danton Black, with a lawyer and some henchmen, claiming Martin Stein stole Danton's research when they were working together, which Martin immediately refutes. The lawyer hands Martin some papers claiming he stole Danton's work, but Martin claims that Danton stole some equipment from him, so there's a court date to settle the dispute. But Martin is determined that nothing will stop him from opening this plant. After some comic book ads, we rejoin Ronnie and learn that his mom died, which is pretty tragic, but also quickly overlooked. And Ronnie turns the news on to see, is that Clark Kent, the reporter? Anyway, he sees some news about the protest at the plant, and he decides to try to impress Doreen. So what does he do? He gives her a call and tells her he's gonna join the protest. She doesn't seem that impressed, so I don't know why he goes anyway, but alas, the story must progress. The protest is actually a terrorist group who plans to blow up the plant. What did Ronnie get himself into? So Ronnie gets roped into going with them. They break through some chain link fence and into the facility, where we get a few more ads, including some sea monkeys and this roided out muscle man. Ronnie comes to his senses and gets clocked by one of the goons. Then Martin sees what's happening on the security cameras and also gets smacked for trying to stop the intruders. They set off the explosives and drive away. Enter Danton Black. Remember him from earlier? He thinks by happenstance now is a great time to go and steal some more corporate secrets. Lo and behold, the dynamite explodes, and all three of them are inevitably cremated by the nuclear disaster. Just kidding. The radiation courses through Ronnie and Martin, and since they were close together, they fuse into what the reader already knows is the nuclear man, Firestorm. And Danton, who is down the hall, starts to shine with a soft amber glow. Firestorm then realizes he isn't wearing any pants, so he creates his iconic yellow and red outfit. Then he creates his moniker Firestorm, for which we know him. Ronnie quickly realizes that he has become super smart, knowing things he has never learned, and it's because his subconscious has fused with Martin Stein. Ronnie remembers that the bad guys were off to blow up another power plant, and we begin to pick up where the first few panels left off, but not before another short tease on what happened to Danton. Firestorm easily dispatches these baddies. He turns a gun into a cucumber, and right before the cops arrive in a last desperate attempt, the main bad guy tries to light off the dynamite, but Firestorm instinctively absorbs the blast internally, showing off even more of his nuclear capabilities. Ronnie then flies home, desperately wanting to become himself again, but not quite sure how, so he screams, "Me!" The exact thing every single one of us would try, and the fusion becomes undone. Martin Stein pops out. Ronnie transforms back to his normal self, and luckily they both have their street clothes on. The professor, as a side effect of the fusion, doesn't quite remember what happened, and we get a small teaser of multiplex for the next issue. So that's it for now. Have you read any of the Firestorm comics? Did you read them when they were first released, or have you collected any of the subsequent series? Do Do you know anything about him beyond his appearance on the CW or just being in random background shots or crossover comics with other DC superheroes? Did you know of his full capabilities or where his stories might lead? No spoilers. Next time, we learn a bit more about what happened to Danton and watch as Ronnie and Martin's lives began to intermingle as the repercussions of the nuclear explosion unfold.